Bering made her response to some Leafy is here wannabe who was like trying to be a counter to the skeptic community and, failed. But like the video he was responding to was like a literal 12-year-old, I think, trying to just copy the arguments of people like Undoomed, Bering, or Sargon. That's the point that it got to, where like actual children or people with the intelligence of children like Mr. Dapperton could come along and like establish themselves as an intellectual and like be treated as such.
Nah, wasn't me, Eso. It was you who did that. You don't remember making a group called Intellectuals United with Operation Bluism, Filthy Heretic, and yourself? You are the childish one who is masquerading as an intellectual, not me. I never said I was an intellectual. I think I have average intelligence, and I've never claimed to be more than that. And when Dapperton was a character in a cartoon, I always played him as the dummy, the guy who always screws things up, the Gilligan of sorts. You know, Gilligan from Gilligan's Island? That's who he was. I never played him as the guy who had the answers to everything, or an intellectual. In fact, I did the opposite. I always played him as the guy that screwed things up every single episode until all the characters died. I would make fun of myself at every single turn, always. Okay, I never try to play an intellectual. But you, on the other hand, have. But what pisses you off so much is the fact that people know I have an average intelligence, and they know I'm smarter than you. And that just pisses you off, because you know that people don't think you're an intellectual. They think you have below average intelligence. And that's why you bitch and moan about me all day, every episode. It's because you're not an intellectual. And deep down, I remind you about it every single day. And it just pisses you the fuck off. And I find it so funny that he thinks he's more original than Skeptics. He's a fucking clone of me, who's a clone of Armored Skeptic himself, the king of skeptics. So he's not just a clone, he's a clone of a clone of a clone. He's not name brand, he's a fucking knockoff of a knockoff. Not only that, he's a fan of Armored Skeptic too, just like me. But look at this. Look at this Four Horsemen picture that Armored Skeptic made. Okay, now look at this picture that Eso made. So tell me how this guy thinks he's better than skeptics like Undoomed and Armored Skeptic when he's a knockoff general store version of me, who is a knockoff of Armored Skeptic himself. So, what the fuck? This doesn't even make sense. I don't understand how Esoteric Entity could copy somebody down to the very smallest of details and then claim that he's better and more original than them. I just don't get it. He claims to hate me, but he copies me. Look, his artist is the same artist that I used. Not only does he have the same style as me, he has the same video format as me. He makes the same type of reply videos. And guess where he learned that from? Me! Not only that, he looks up to me. He is a Dapperton clone. He even admits that I made him ANCAP. And he hasn't just said this once, he said this multiple times. But here he is saying that I have the intellect of a 12-year-old, but I'm the one who inspired him to be an ANCAP. My arguments were good enough to convince him to be an ANCAP. Okay, so either I had the intelligence of a 12-year-old, and I was able to convince him of a whole new worldview because I'm smarter than him, even as a 12-year-old, so that means he's dumber than a fucking 12-year-old. Or I don't have the intelligence of a 12-year-old. In fact, I'm smarter than him, that's why he's copying me. Either way, I'm smarter than him. I changed your life. And you're going to sit there and say you're smarter than me? When you're sitting there copying me, you're copying the way I look, you're copying the way I present myself in videos, you're doing the same exact format. Yes. Dude, you're not a hater. You're my biggest fan.
All right, now, anyways, we spent like 23 minutes we're not really 23 minutes, but we spent like 10 minutes fighting with technical difficulties, and then another 13 minutes actually discussing the
Fighting
context
with
of the video.
Beginning with technical difficulty and explaining why we hate the skeptosphere, along with why we regret making our older content the way we did. But
hmm I mean, I think it's useful as at least an exploration as to what our own thoughts and opinions were like in the past and how we've developed as.
sure,
I'd hesitate to call us intellectuals simply because that sounds a little, arrogant. But I mean,
yeah, it is sure.
it does provide an explanation, or and it is an interesting exploration as to our own intellectual development. I should say. Naturally,
So
we still have a long way to go before I'm even comfortable calling myself an intellectual. But I mean, it's still well, yeah.
So you don't call yourself an intellectual anymore, but not that long ago, you were calling yourself the Intellectuals United. So you indeed called yourself intellectuals. And yes, you were that arrogant. If you liked this little video, I know it was short, but if you liked it, smash that thumbs up, please. Alright, guys. Later.